My first tip for you is that you need to learn how to make your own brushes. Clip Studio has a very advanced brush engine, which is extremely versatile. And often, if you have a very specific situation, you can quickly make a custom brush instead of spending hours to find it on the internet. I'll cover how to make brushes in another video, but I just felt like it's something that not a lot of people know how to do, but it's extremely important. If you're tired of accidentally drawing your line art on the sketch layer, I recommend using this button right here. It basically changes everything on the layer to be a shade of blue. You're also able to change what color it is by going up here and clicking the paint bucket. If you forget to switch to your line art layer and start drawing, you can immediately realize that you're on the wrong layer because it turns everything to the shade of color. Reference layers are a very powerful tool. You can make a layer a reference layer by clicking this button right here. Once you set something to a reference layer, you can set different tools to base their operations based on the layer. You can do this for the paint bucket by going to Refer Other Layers, Refer Multiple, and then click the lighthouse. And then on another layer, you can fill in based on this. I don't personally use this tip, but if you want to color code your layers, go up here and you can select different layer colors. If you want to manipulate multiple layers at once, first select your layers. You can hold Shift to select layers in a row, or do Control to select individual layers. Then go up to the tool you wish to use, and it works just like that. This also works for transforming and all of the layer buttons right here. Perspective rulers are very powerful tools, but I recommend having a base knowledge of perspective before you use them. By drawing a box in the perspective that you want, it makes it easier to set the vanishing points. There are two kinds of perspective rulers. The first kind you use by going down to the ruler button, then selecting perspective ruler. You are able to draw lines to set different vanishing points. So for 1 point perspective, 2 point perspective, and 3 point perspective. When you draw with these, it automatically snaps your lines, so you can easily create 3D boxes. The second type of ruler is very similar, but you find it up here in the layer drop down by going to Ruler, Frame, Create Perspective Ruler. And then it makes an automatic ruler based on how many vanishing points you want. However, if you go into Object, then lightly tap the ruler, you can see down here there's a grid option. And a few other notable ruler settings are, if you see this icon right here, you can right click it and you can choose if you want to show it in all layers, the same folder, or only this layer. You can also find these settings right here. A few other kinds of rulers I find very useful are the symmetrical ruler, the curve ruler. One ruler I don't use a lot, but does have a lot of fun settings, is the special ruler. It has many different types, such as radial line, concentric circle, and parallel line. Most artists I know are pretty averse to using the fill bucket tool, but in Clip Studio Paint, it's actually very versatile. The Paint Bucket tool has many different settings which set it apart from other programs. The first setting is Close Gap, which allows you to fill in line art that has gaps, as you can see. The second setting is Area Scaling. Basically takes the initial fill bucket and it expands it by a certain amount of pixels. I can exaggerate this effect, you can see. Area Scaling also has different modes that change the smoothness of how it expands the pixels. The Paint Bucket also lets you refer to different types of layers, including reference layers, which I explained earlier. It also lets you exclude different types of layers. Another tool related to the Paint Bucket is the Close and Fill tool. The Close and Fill tool allows you to select an area and completely fill it in. It has all of the same settings that the Paint Bucket does, but also these. I don't fully understand how these work, but the main setting that seems to work for me is only white and transparent. Another trick you can do with the Paint Bucket is you can click and drag to fill in many areas. Another useful feature of Clip Studio Paint is gradient maps, which you can find in the Edit drop-down, Tonal Correction, and Gradient Map. As you can see, it maps the values of your drawing to a gradient, which only works based on value and nothing else. You can use it to create many effects. The crazier gradient effects can actually be pretty useful, as they can create nuanced colors in your artwork. One useful thing I use gradient maps for is coloring tough things like metals. My final tip is that you can create duplicate windows of the canvas you're working on. I usually use this for references or just to see a full view of my canvas while I'm working on a very zoomed in view.